Welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today, we are super excited to have some of the most exciting, creative people within jazz today. We have Ray Angry with us, as well as Steve Mandel. Before we jump into it, remember to like and subscribe. Also, come join us on the Jazz Bums Discord. We're going to drop a link to that in the description. And we live stream every Friday, so come check us out there. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Felipe to get us started.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Welcome back. Today we have Ray Angry. Born in Georgia, raised in Miami. He's a pianist, producer, composer, one of the most sought-after artists today. Classically trained, roots in gospel, jazz, other steering pot of things and rhythms and styles. Has worked with D'Angelo, Esperanza Spalding, Cindy Blackman, Q-Tip, Michelle Negoncello, Wynton, Queen Latifah, to Mick Jagger. Everybody wants him. Currently, he's playing with The Roots. He's releasing his second solo effort, Ray Angry 3, and among other projects which we're gonna be talking about today. Joined by Steve Mandel, who's a producer, co-producer in all the JMI Records releases, highly experienced for decades of work, great work with the highest names as well. So thank you, Steven. Thank you, Ray Angry. Welcome.
And everybody wants me too, Ray.
Yes.
Just so you know.
but thank you so much, guys, for giving some of your time to us today. I hope we have a nice chat here. Fun and nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no doubt. We've been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, yeah, really excited to talk to you guys. So, Ray, we usually ask this kind of question to start off every conversation, which is, when you were a kid growing up, like what kind of music were you into? How did you get into playing, and then get into jazz and just that journey? You could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was really into classical music because I was in an arts program, basically an arts program my whole life growing up, and just being in those programs, I was surrounded by really incredible mentors. So my first piano teacher was an expert on the music of Bach. He had every harpsichord ever made in the history of the harpsichords. He was a real authority. So that was kind of my upbringing, and then growing up in the church as well. But I didn't get into jazz until high school. At my high school, I was at a school called New World School of the Arts. And we would have, McCoy Tyner come through, Wynton Marsalis, Ira Coleman, a lot of legends come through. So I was always surrounded by mentors growing up who kind of pushed me in different directions musically. And that's pretty much, my upbringing musically.
Did you play? Sorry, one real quick follow up. Did you play in the church growing up too?
Oh yeah. I played in all sorts of churches. Yeah, all sorts of churches. Yeah.
Very cool.
Ray played in the Church of the Poison Mind once.
Yeah.
That's a Culture Club reference for this.
I was watching one interview with you, Ray, and I think you were saying that at some point you were actually like jumping from church to church in like a single day just to watch the organ players or the piano players.
Yeah, I was when I was younger, I was hungry to understand how these guys were improvising and just the harmonic language, that you find in the church, just trying to really understand. And also rhythmically how the organist was creating rhythm and harmony at the same time, and how music was used to move people. I was very curious about that. But my only barometer was the written page. So I was studying Bach and understanding that world. And it was kind of weird because I was getting the best of both worlds growing up, because all the guys in the church were, I would play Bach and they would say, oh man, I wish I could play that. And I'm like, man, I wish I could improvise and play what you guys are playing, Yeah, that was, yeah.
Very cool.
So when did you find yourself as a composer? Improvisation, you mentioned improvisation quite a lot. When did you realize, okay, I can write my own stuff. I can improvise and write as well?
Early on, when I when I was first learning how to play piano, I would because of this whole, discovery, trying to discover what these church musicians were doing. There's a sense of improvisation there, and so without knowing it, I was, I was always writing my own songs, without even knowing it. But I think being in college and being surrounded by folks like Wynton Marsalis, Marcus Roberts, I really got into composition in college, and then it just developed more as I became a working musician in New York City.
I grew up in the church too, and Pentecostal church. My whole family just generations has been there, So we had the same kind of music experience with that, because it was what I'm trying to say is just like that emotional connection that I think those players have with their audience, obviously in church. There's a spiritual concept to that too, but it's just that back and forth with the audience. We've talked to some other folks, that are big live performers, and how important it is to interact with the audience, right? So do you think that kind of helped you in that realm too, like when you started performing gigs and stuff like that, having that church experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember one Sunday I was playing in church, and I was dreaming about being in New York, and one Sunday I realized, oh man, this is like setting the scene for a movie. This is like the underscore for a movie. Because music plays such a vital tone in the church. You're often playing music that's for the mood, so I think having that sort of sensitivity and definitely helped, when I was, playing at church, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So moving ahead, you went to Howard University. That seemed like an extremely formative time for you in multiple ways, particularly with jazz. And I've heard you kind of speak to you kind of like running out and going to see like some jam sessions, sneaking your way into Blues Alley to see Wynton. Can you, and I'm sure, there's a lot to unpack there, but can you speak a little bit about your, what drove you to go to Howard and study there, and your experience there?
Well, I had a bunch of friends in high school who were auditioning for Juilliard. I mean, these guys was practicing 18 hours a day, and they did not get into Juilliard, and so I was like really afraid of New York, and I saw the effect that the disappointment of not getting into Juilliard had on my friends. So for some reason, I was drawn to Howard. I had a teacher named Ed Love, who was an art teacher who was at Howard, but he came to he was one of the teachers at my school, New World, which was sort of like LaGuardia School of the Arts here in New York City. It's like Fame was a big TV show in the 80s. It was sort of that. We had this mixture of art, dance, music, and theater for high school students. And so being in this program, my teacher said, you should go to Howard University. And I didn't know anything about Howard, but I didn't audition for any schools. I had scholarships to a bunch of schools, but I chose to go to Howard because it was closer to New York. And I didn't want to go to a school that was like in the middle of nowhere. I thought of, anyway. So, I went to Howard because it was closer to New York, and so I was afraid to go to New York, man. I was so afraid, but Howard was a good choice. It was a very great choice.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of your mentors and teachers that you worked with there?
Oh man, Grady Tate,
Oh, nice.
Grady Tate, Jerry Allen, Charles Covington, Mogul Miller.
Yeah.
Those were some of my mentors. I mean, there's so many more.
Incredible.
But
That's incredible.
But Grady Tate, Grady Tate, I learned so much about. I was his accompanist for all his vocal students.
Okay.
So I learned how to, how to accompany vocalists, and just learned a lot about the music business from Grady Tate. And Jerry Allen was,
That's amazing.
Jerry Allen, he was just, a great teacher. Yeah.
Very cool. So, I know there's a lot to unpack with everything, but I did want to discuss how you and Steve kind of hooked up. Steve, I know that you're, obviously producing, multiple acts, including the Roots. What was your first encounter with Ray?
He passed me a joint outside the Cafe Wa. I didn't know who he was. No, I just kidding. He started to. We had gotten Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and the Roots had gotten the show Late Night in 2009, I think, and
2008.
2008. And there's two keyboard players that were the full-time keyboard players on the show. And when one of those guys would be out for a day for whatever reason, Ray started to just appear there, suddenly. I didn't know who he was. But quickly I saw, that he was a great guy and a really different type of musician. And he very quickly became Questlove's kind of secret weapon in the studio and became his production partner for everything, for whatever whatever Quest was working on, whatever projects, anything from just making beats, making new songs, to commercials and things for the Super Bowl, and whatever the heck he was working on, Ray was suddenly there for everything. And then 10 years gone, it's just like he just kind of kept building and building, and now he's a permanent part of the Roots on the show and on their touring band, and still Quest's secret weapon to this day in the studio. But yeah, in answering your question, he just kind of appeared suddenly in my life, and I was like, I was blown away by his talent, and quickly started to try and incorporate him in the stuff I was working on as well.
That's the nicest thing Steve has ever said to me.
No, but he did. He started
historical moment.
History's
being made.
He started to. Because JMI didn't exist at that time. We were still a number of years away from that. But he was helping me with projects I was working on, like stuff for Squeeze, stuff for Elvis Costello. He was there for me, so we started to work together in that regard. And then when JMI happened, he was, although I never associated him with jazz really at all, in the kind of regard, in the way that we've ended up recording him for JMI. But when we did our first JMI album, the Steve Wilson album, it was originally supposed to be just a trio. It was going to be Steve Wilson, Willie Jones, and Willie Jones III, and Ben
Williams.
Ben Williams. And I told him, let's get Ray there too, and just see what happens on the piano. And he stole the show, as I kind of knew he would. So, and then our second record was Ray's leader album, Ray Angry 1.
So did the idea for Ray Angry 1 came after you guys worked successfully in the Steven Wilson, or was happening parallel, kind of the same time?
What's happening during that time period? What do you mean?
No, yeah, I mean, you said he fits so well in the Steven Wilson record, kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
So Ray Angry 1 was a record that was conceived after that session, or kind of happened in parallel?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. It happened after that session. Everybody was really excited about what he had done on the first record, and we clearly saw that we had kind of this certainly not unknown artist on our hands, but somebody who had never recorded a leader record or a vinyl record, and we were excited to you know, have him do Ray Angry 1, I mean, he brought in 4 other major players for that, at least 4 other major players on that record that really helped us as a label to, you know, start to work with all these modern legends that are here in New York and elsewhere. But yeah, once we saw what he did on Steve Wilson, then, you know, we were like, yeah, we need an entire record of Ray doing his thing, you know, as the main guy.
Excellent.
And I would say I cut my teeth as a composer on my first record, to answer your question. I mean, I've been writing, you know, my whole life and working on, as Steve said, you know, doing a bunch of projects with Questlove. But, you know, always having someone else's name as co-writer. But this, you know, this record was really the first time where, you know, I was the sole writer and leader. So yeah, that's where I cut my teeth. Yeah.
I feel like you had one of the most insane backgrounds before you had a lead record, though. I mean, just looking through you know, Felipe talked about some of the folks you worked with, but I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years now, right? I mean, you started in 1994 and you've been just writing for superstars and playing with them and touring. I mean, it's quite the career, man.
You want to hear something crazy I just thought about? I think all of those gigs that I did, playing with so many people, was my fear. It was easy for me to do that because I had a fear of being out front, of being seen, of doing interviews. You know, I had a fear of that. And it was easy for me to be in the background and learn like 30 songs for a tour, or, you know, or help an artist put their show together, or help them record their album. It's easy for me to hide behind the celebrity. But when I met Steve and Jake, they were like, you should have an album. And I was like, really, I didn't really want to do it, you know, because I was like, nah, man, no one wants to hear from me, you know. And I was very scared. But they both pushed me, especially Steve. Pushed me like, come on, man, you can do it, you know. They don't know this, but they kept asking me, hey, when can we go in the studio? And I kept saying, oh, December, you know, get closer to December. So you ready? Oh man, you know, let's do January. I kept putting it off. And then January, I gave myself a date because then they were like, come on, man, we have to go in the studio. And I think we picked March 15th. Or I can't remember the date. It was like 15th or the 18th. And I literally locked myself in my house for 3 months. I did not answer the phone. I was watching a bunch of Spike Lee movies because I wanted the album to feel like the soundtrack for a movie.
Wait, are you talking about Ray? You talking about Ray Angry 1 or 3?
Ray Angry 1.
Okay.
Ray Angry 1. And I just locked myself in my apartment, and I literally wrote every day. And I would write to picture too. I would watch a scene from if I wanted to make a love song, I would watch a scene from one of Spike's movies, and I would listen to the music, and then I would just go and try to write something. And I was literally watching television and writing the music for Ray Angry 1. And then that whole experience being in the studio, having those great players, I knew that I wanted to record with my friends, you know, Eric Harlan, Derek Hodge, Ambrose. Ambrose actually, I don't think Steve knows this, but Ambrose, when he first came on the scene, he did the Thelonious Monk competition.
All right.
He won the competition. One night I was playing at Jet Smoke or some jam session, and I reharmonized some song. I think I reharmonized Body and Soul or something, and Ambrose was so moved by my reharms. He said, hey man, can you write this out? And he used it in the competition for the Monk competition. So I think Jeff Keys or somebody was playing, they were playing like my arrangements, you know. Wow. And so that's how I got with Ambrose. And then Myron was playing with this drummer who I love named Brian Blade. Yeah. And and they had this band called the Fellowship, and I always loved his playing. And so you know, and so so I reached out to these guys, and then Myron, you know, he was a good friend when I first came to New York, and so that I knew I had to have those players, because I knew that they would take the music and just make it into something, you know, and that's what happened, you know.
Right. So when you put together that group, can we jump into kind of the recording technique piece of this? And you know, JMI is known for the all analog experience, but in terms of in the studio, we've spoken with Anthony Wilson and Jerome Saba, and they've recorded in a similar fashion, all tape recording. But one of the things that both of them have mentioned is recording without headphones. Is that the experience that you guys had for Ray Angry One?
Not for Ray Angry One, but for Plumb. That
Plumb.
is the experience. And
yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
I was just curious. Continue.
It seems like, you know, this is still like it's not the most common practice, but I was just curious to kind of get your thoughts on that recording style, and if it's something that you think has its benefits that kind of outweigh some of the other recording styles that you've done.
Brings more synergy, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I literally just had this conversation yesterday about that choice that you make in the studio, and usually it's not a choice. Usually everybody, including myself, will use headphones because you've got somebody in an isolation booth or something like that needs to hear, obviously, and it's just it's kind of just the norm. But the truth is, headphones, that whole idea, first of all, there's always issues with headphones, and everybody's got their own mix going on, and it's to me personally, I think that it takes a little bit away from where, you know, from the artist being live in the room with everybody else, reading everybody's body language, and, you know, everybody hearing the natural sound in the room. Headphones are just naturally going to limit the grandeur of the sound, you know, just because you're hearing it through these tiny little speakers rather than in a big room, you know, the natural organic sounds of the instruments. So I learned my lesson. I mean, I still use headphones when I have to, like I said, when somebody's in an isolation booth or if it's needed. But if I can get away with it, and I'm going to opt for no headphones for all the reasons I said, like we did on Plumb. And yeah, it's a problem when you're mixing. It's, it's
bleeding.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult to mix because you remember we set up like amps so Quest and Murray could hear Ray's keys. We had to set up amps so that they could hear it. And then, you know, you're trying to mix or you're trying to isolate something or do a drop in a mix, you know, and create some moment, you know, you have bleed coming from, you know, the amps and from everything else. But that was a special project, and for obvious reasons, I wanted everybody to be close together and without headphones.
So Ray, you recorded Ray Angry One. You kind of overcame your fear of being at the front. You're there.
Yeah.
That's why Ray Angry 3 was a solo, even further in the front for you. Just like, okay, I can do a solo now. That's what I want to do. Or how did that come?
The Ray Angry 3 was not. Ray Angry 3 was not created out of fear. I think it was number one. Steve was pushing me. So that's the that's the common denominator.
I'm going to change my title. I'm going to be pusher man instead of producer.
Pusher Steve. And you know, if you have to think about it. You know, this is during the pandemic. You know, Ring of Three was recorded during the pandemic, and also, you know, I lost. You know, I lost my parents. My parents by this time were gone, and then I lost two brothers. You know, 30 days apart. So Ray Angry 3 really came out of passion and a longing and just me missing my family. And I really emotionally just unloaded onto onto the recording session. I think Ray Angry 3 was more or less like an emotional diary, because I was I was in a, I was kind of fucked up, I was, missing my family, and then I had to do this record. And so the record became sort of like a therapeutic experience. And so that's why you have such a wide variety of music, because emotionally I was just all over the place. And then I broke the sustain pedal. And that's why one song is called Damper, because I was so mad, Remember that, Steve?
Yeah. So we actually Ray is a Steinway artist, and we record at a certain studio here in New York most of the time called Reservoir. Ray wanted to support his endorser and use a Steinway piano on this record. So we literally had Steinway deliver a piano to the studio for the session, Steinway, because they have a what do they have, a Yamaha there, Ray? So we had a Steinway delivered specifically for this session, and then Ray broke it.
But
it was towards the end of the day. Yeah,
it ended up being very cool, because I started to play the strings inside the piano and almost use the piano as a percussive instrument.
Check out the song.
I'm a huge fan of somebody you guys may know or you may not know, named Don Pullen.
Yeah, Don Pullen. Oh yeah.
Woo!
Okay.
Don Pullen. I remember when I was at Howard, man, I didn't have any money, and I used to walk to Blues Alley. Yeah. Chris Dave and I actually used to walk from our dorms at Howard University to Blues Alley to try to get in for free. And I remember going to see Don Pullen. I don't think Chris was with me this time, but I remember going to see Don Pullen. I didn't know who he was. I was just drawn to him, and I was just fascinated at the different sounds he was getting out of the piano, and he was also in the church. He played, he has a spiritual side to him as well. And so I was really drawn to him, but I saw him playing and using the piano in such an enormous way. And so that moment, I guess I was inspired by Don Pullen.
Yeah, I've been getting into Don Pullen all. This man, so good.
Yeah, this is a great one.
Superior Viaduct just reissued a Don Pullen Milford Graves concert at Yale. That is wild. It's absolutely nuts. It's really anyway, it's a great record. People should definitely check that out.
Now I got to go back to Ray Angry 1, man, because first of all, love the work Stephen y'all are doing at JMI. Really big fan of your label. And then I got this about a month ago, and I think I've listened to it probably 5 or 6 times. That record just kind of blew me away, Ray. I mean, I don't know how to even explain it. Like, it's just so different, so many different textures, and the Carla Bley song that you got on there is, I think, my favorite track on the album. It's just so, I don't know, man. I really liked it. Really liked the record a whole lot.
Again, that's Pusher Steve.
Yeah.
He presented this song to me, and I was like, man, how am I gonna reproduce this song? And it just hit me. And and then also when you have a guy like Eric Harlan who can play anything, it just all fell together. And that's one of my favorite records as well, and Ambrose playing at the very end. Ooh! Oh!
Yeah. Now there's a part in that song where you kind of repeat a certain phrase over and over again, right? And the drum part on that is just insane. I mean, it just shows tightness through that phrase over and over again. It just kind of builds, man. It's just so
crazy,
kick ass, so kick ass.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, Eric. Oh man, what a fun record. That's a fun record. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
last
Eric,
thing I'll say. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that was all my idea.
Yeah.
yeah. Pusha Steve.
But you know, the other thing I really enjoyed about that album is just the diversity of kind of sound on it. I mean,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but shout out to David Slitsky, who was our engineer on that one, recorded and mixed by
Yeah.
him.
very good.
It's such a crazy good sounding record. So he's a great engineer.
Yeah, Slitsky.
So I'm finally going to ask you a question about the record. Another song on side 2, I think it's the first song on side 2. You're playing the Hammond, real church sounding. When you composed these songs, and you told us how you did it, but did you just try to like put all of your influences into the music and make a statement maybe about like where you've been and where you're going and that sort of thing?
Yes. I think when I create music, it's really about that because I feel like this is just my opinion. I feel like a lot of players, when they think about music, they think one dimension, you know. And for me, I always saw that as like I told you with my friends who auditioned for Juilliard and didn't get in. You know, I think some of them stopped doing music. So I think that's the effect of having one dimension in terms of your musical scope, because you know, to me, music is the embodiment of having a human experience, because music is sad, it's happy, it's inviting, it's dark, it's positive. You know, there's jazz, there's so many different cultures, there's only 12 notes, but there's so many different ways to interpret these 12 notes and combine these 12 notes. So I always wanted to have a holistic view in terms of my musical expression. So yes, I always try to, because there was a time when I was, you know, I didn't want to sound like a church musician. You know what I mean? I didn't want to sound like a classical player, you know. And it's like being in these different worlds, you know. The church guys say, "Oh, I'm a jazz guy." The jazz guys say, "Oh, I'm in a church." So then I said, you know, fuck it, you know, I'm just gonna mix it all together. And so Ray Angry One really is, you know, my love for music. It's a love letter to music, because I love so many different styles. I love the blues, gospel, and I love the complex. You know, Carla Bly's song is very, very complex. And I also love Jake-isms, you know, which is also extremely complex, but it's my take on Giant Steps, which I wrote at a jam session one day when I was in Paris. At one point I was in Paris all the time. And after this jam session, I was sitting at the piano deconstructing Giant Steps, and it just kind of hit me, that motif, that, you know, it just hit me. And then I started to harmonize it, and so yeah, so everything that I experienced musically, I try to put that on record when I'm in the studio, because you know I want people to feel a certain emotion, you know, because music is about storytelling, you know, and so I want to always be a great storyteller.
Yeah,
amazing.
So a lighter question, but when Felipe, Chris, and I connected, we all kind of just thought about this, just looking at the work you've done. So you have Ray Angry 1 and then Ray Angry 3. Was there a Ray Angry 2? What was the jump in numbers? Is that a silly question?
That's it.
Hey, Pusher Steve.
Yeah.
It's a lot going to come out of this conversation. You know, the one thing I love about Steve is such a rebel, and he thinks outside of the box. And I love, like, everything that basically, I have this fear of being out front. I have this fear of showing people who I am. You know what I mean? I like to hide behind artists. And I think Steve has single-handedly been like, hey man, come out front, stop hiding behind this, behind your talent. You know, you can do this. And yeah, and that's been the whole vibe. And so Ray Angry One was a great idea. And then Steve just was like, hey, let's call it Ray Angry 3. And I was like, okay, cool. Because it's a great conversation starter. People are like, where's 2? So they're going to go look for 2. When they're trying to look for 2, they're going to find 1. And when they're looking for 1, they're going to find 3, you know? So
all right. Well,
great marketing tool.
I have a little different take on it. I mean, when we started working with Ray, when we started working on Ray 1, we kind of agreed to do 4 records with him. That was the concept, was to do 4, and they were each going to be different types of records. And we had them sort of mapped out in our head. Like Ray Angry 1 was going to be a quintet or whatever it is. And then Ray 2 was going to be a trio record. I think an organ trio record or something like that. And we just didn't do that. We got to and Ray 3 was going to be a solo piano record. And we just happened to do that Ray 3 first. And like,
what's 4? What's 4 going? I guess what 4
well,
is.
Well, 4 is when it's going to be our JMI's final record, when we're ready to spend everything that we have left in the vault, and it's going to be it's going to be Ray 4. It's going to be called Blowout, because it's going to be a blowout. Just kind of, we really want to give Ray his ultimate dream album, which is a very large ensemble and a lot of musicians and a ton of featured guests, and you know, really splash out at a big studio for like a week-long recording session and then a month-long mix session. You know, that kind of record. You know, much more than a jazz record. We want to kind of give him his.
It's like Headhunters and Beyond.
Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah. So, but Ray 4 is you know, we're working on Ray 2 next. Is the answer to your question.
Very cool.
Organ trio sounds pretty kick-ass. What are the other 2 instruments going to be?
Oh, I mean, that's a good question. You know, I would assume drums and either guitar or, you know, bass. You know, something. I'm not sure. Ray is so much more than. First of all, he's so much more than jazz, obviously, but he's also.
It might be Chris, Dave, and Pino.
Bro, let me just. I saw the show last night. You gotta. I'm about to talk on that in a second, but like before I do. You know, I just wanted to say Ray is so much more than a piano player or a keyboard player, as you know, composer. But also, I want to point out his arrangements and his arranging skills and his arrangements, his skills as an arranger, I should say. He recently arranged and conducted a string quartet for a JMI release that just came out for the artist named Katrina Sturton, and he arranged strings on one song. And he's been the guy is such a. This leads me right into the conversation about the show I saw last night, the Blue Note, which Ray is referencing. Pino Palladino and Chris Daddy Dave and Isaiah Sharkey. Again, trio, bass, drums, and guitar. And I had seen them play at the Blue Note a few months ago, and I saw them last night. They're starting a 10-night consecutive run. You know, 20 shows. At the Blue Note, and this is it's like watching a magic act. It's for many reasons. They're really locked in, and the music is just otherworldly, futuristic, but also, you know, it's. I don't want to try and describe it, but it's like watching a magic act, and you walk out of the show so blown away. But for me, I keep leaving thinking that. It's so heartwarming and so like endearing and so it's so I'm so thankful when I see artists, and the reason why I'm referencing those 3 guys is because Ray falls right into this conversation. When I see an artist that's so dedicated and so so passionate about their craft and so dedicated to their instrument and so generous in trying to show us how it's done, how, you know, where music is going. and to be, you know, and you can see the joy that they have in being part of the evolution and being part of pushing music forward into the future. And Ray is absolutely an artist just like that. And I can only name really a handful that I know that are like that. So if you get a chance, Ray, have you seen that show yet?
No, I'm gonna go tonight, I think. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Chris Dave, and I've known Chris since I was at Howard, you know, and he was just at my house just yesterday, and we've been recording in the studio with, you know, with some amazing players. So, you know, there's a lot that's about to happen between Chris Dave and I. But Chris
on JMI or somewhere else.
Somewhere else. But
oh, great.
I mean, no, but we're gonna, you know, Ray Angry 2. I'm putting it out there. Ray Angry 2 with Chris Dave and Pino Palladino.
Whoa.
You know, you know, these guys, I mean, that's really pretty much where it's going, because you know, Chris and I are always talking about music, and we're always talking about pushing music, you know what I mean, to the next level. And he's been a really great friend, and also you know, a great coattail puller. Come on, man, you know, let's go, you know. Stop overthinking. Let's make this music, you know. Chris, I love Chris. Chris has always been a forward thinker. Yeah.
That sounds killer, man. Pino Palladino, I think that's just a killer player, man.
Yeah.
Killer player.
Yeah. You played with the Palladino at the Toyland release, right?
Yes. 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 Toyland. I love that song.
So so Ray, just wrapping up on Ray Angry 3 before jumping to Plumb. You mentioned that you like Don Poland, this percussive approach to playing the piano, right? And on Ray Angry 3, there's a Thelonious Monk song, which is probably the first guy to actually do that, right? So, and Prince also, there's a reference to Prince in the record. So how did this come about, and what's the importance of those two figures to you?
Oh my God. You know, the best way I can answer that is, number one, you know, Thelonious Monk as a composer, I'm just so influenced by his ability to take from the past, crumble it up, and reconstruct his own vision of what music is to him, reconstruct his own sense of harmony, his own sense of melody, his own sense of space in music, you know, creating space.
That's like Chris Daddy Dave. It's incredible. He's just like an accordion with time, you know. And then the other guys are the same way as well, with time and with things like melody and harmony. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and you know, and Prince, I love Prince because, you know, number one, I got a chance to play with him, and I had a crazy experience with Prince, and then after he passed away, I went to Paisley Park. Then I realized there was a mural as you're leaving the studio, and you're going from one room to like the big auditorium where he has like a lot of concerts. I really discovered like all of the musicians that he worked with, that he played with, all the families whose lives he's, you know, had an influence on. And for me, having started Producer Mondays, I also wanted to use music as a way to bring community together, but also as a way to inspire other musicians, and also to have this long line of collaborators, you know. And to me, Prince is, you know, across decades of all the records he's made, his dedication to community, you know, because whenever he does a record, I feel like it's a family, you know. And so I admire Prince for that, and I admire him for his just his ability to be an individual and to be a visionary, you know. To me, that's also very important, having a vision for music, having musical integrity, having your music be a statement for who you are as a person. And I think you can go throughout Prince's whole discography and sort of see the evolution of a man. You know what I mean? And especially on the business side, you know, when he tried to disassociate himself from the name Prince and became the sign, because you know of the bad deal.
The symbol, not the sign.
The symbol, right? Yeah, but you know, yeah. So Prince and Thelonious Monk are very important to me because they're both visionaries. You know, and to me, it's there's more to music than just playing a bunch of notes. There's more to music than having the wow factor. It's like, how are you going to change someone's life, and where's your music going, and who are you going to bring with you? So for me, making a record, having Eric Harlan, Derek Hodge, you know, making a record with Questlove, making a record with, you know, with Steve Wilson and all the people that I've recorded, Queen Latifah and all the people I've worked with. For me, it's about just connecting with just brilliant people, you know, and pushing the narrative of anything is possible. And, you know, and to never give up on your dreams, you know. So there's a lot that those two guys embody that I love. And I had to, and also the record was about relationships. And that's one of the most important things in life and in music, is to foster relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing, definitely looking at your your past interviews and reading about your bio, one thing that I just thought was an interesting point in time was when you first came to New York. I think Mulgrew basically said you need to go to New York, and I think you played the Jazz Gallery, which is Roy Hargrove's spot.
Yeah.
And I think can you talk about like when you were coming up then, and how important like venues like that were, and kind of the mentors that you had to kind of help push you to kind of get, you know, to that next level?
Oh man, I remember when I was when I was a student at Howard University, you know, I think I was one of the only guys that would venture outside of school and go to jam sessions, you know. I was always really curious about music, and I was always asking questions, you know. And so venues like Twins Lounge in Washington, D.C., where I met so many incredible musicians. I think that's one of the first times I saw Nick Payton, Nicholas Payton. I remember I was because I was a huge fan of Kenny Kirkland, and I remember meeting Nick Payton at Blues Alley at Twins Lounge, and also Orrin Evans.
Okay.
You know, and being in New York City, having a place like New Blue and the Jazz Gallery also fostered this idea of creativity and also community, and really trying to understand improvisation and trying to understand jazz. I mean, you know, my time with Roy Hargrove was really wild. Like, now that I think about it, like he was very influential on me without me even knowing it, with him starting RH Factor and me being there from the very beginning of him doing that band. And the Jazz Gallery was very important because that, to me, that was a space where I got to meet a lot of players. I got to do a piano duet with Mulgrew Miller, you know, when I first moved to New York. And being able to connect with people and have conversations about music was very important. So yes, those venues were very important, especially ones that push, push music in a way where you have a setting where musicians from different parts of the world can come and play their music. You know, you have like, you know, Steve Coleman coming in with M-Bass, you know, doing workshops. You know, it's just, you know, I think it's very important to have venues that partner with creative artists, you know. So I was very lucky.
So now, most recently, we have Plumb about to come out. So
Yeah.
it was a totally, again, we mentioned a little. It's this trio experience.
It's a great
different.
record.
It's a great record. It's very, yeah. Is it like a telling some sort of story as well, or just guys jamming? What was the concept behind it?
Oh wow. Well, I don't know if there was a concept going in, but they found one, while they were doing it. And certainly by the end of it, we knew we had some kind of a musical story. As some, the story to me, it seems like when I think about what you just asked, the story is in my head. The fact that they had no story going in, like they're such great musicians and such great improvisers and such great communicators, musical communicators, or communication through music, and that there was no script, there was no preconceived hey, let's do one in the key of G. Like, nobody was calling out anything. It was all just speaking through their instruments and body language, and just intuition. And that was really the thrilling part. Once, because really leading up to that album was just a lot of details and nerves and trying to figure out exactly how to do it all and what to do. And but when you're inviting three virtuosos at their instruments and virtuoso improvisers, and also they had all worked together before. I don't know if you ever played with Murray Ray before.
Yeah.
Oh.
I played with Murray and Richard Nichols, the former manager for the Roots. He passed away a couple of years ago. He would often bring me to the studio with various projects he was doing. And one day he brought me in to meet David Murray, to do a record with David Murray. And then David Murray ended up doing a show in Paris that Richard was producing. It was my first time playing in Paris with David Murray, and it was a crazy experience. I was playing piano, organ, rose, and synths, and it was just a very awesome experience. And then doing this Plumb record was really scary because David Murray is a legend, and I was very like, oh my God, what are we doing? And then I just started playing, and then and the music just happened, it just the music literally just happened. And he had a couple ideas, a couple charts that we played, and then those things just happened and developed, but that's the beauty of David. He's so open, and he also understands space in music, and it's just great working with people like that. And then Quest, he's the rhythm king, and all of those records that he's absorbed, just made for a really great experience, being in the moment, truly.
Yeah, well, Ray and Quest have, like I stated earlier, been working together pretty constantly for the last however many years now, 15. And so they have this natural communication at this unspoken language, and it was amazing. I'm not even sure how much I noticed it at the time we were recording, but listening back to the record, if you listen carefully, you can hear one of them come up with an idea, and then somebody else plays off of it or enhances it, and then but it's incredible watching those three guys. Yeah, there were charts for 2 songs. We ended up using one of those songs on the record. But it was like it's a free jazz record. That's how I look at it. And it's a very emphasis on jazz, really, because it's just wholly improvised for the most part.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Plumb. So Ray Angry 3, is that one of is the vinyl version of that available now? It's a 3 LP box set, right?
I'm glad you asked. So a lot of people have pre-ordered both Plumb and the Ray Angry 3 box set. Both are being pressed at GZ, and we should have the Ray Angry vinyl box available to ship in March, and Plumb available to ship in April. If it takes longer, if it takes longer than that, it would only be a little longer, and I apologize. But because some people ordered it like 6 months ago, and I just feel so guilty that they don't have it yet. But with everything's been approved, test pressings have been everything. It's all in production. So
now wait, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful album.
Yeah,
the package is amazing. There's this great booklet that really tells a lot of the story as well, with quotes and essays from Quest and Black Thought, and a lot of people who worked on the sessions wrote things about Ray and about the recording of the solo piano record, Ray 3. And it's the physical products, as you know, is kind of more exciting to us, a lot more exciting to us than streaming the music. But so yes, March and April, respectively.
Very cool.
Yeah, the essays are terrific. There's even like the description of piano. I've never seen the description so detailed on the piano.
Oh
right?
yeah, you saw the booklet already, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
really, it's incredible.
Yeah. So Ray, another question for you. The second track on Plumb is I'm Brazilian. It's really like a samba to me, right? And we just mentioned Questlove is this record collector, music knowledgeable. Are you into that as well? Do you collect records? Do you explore sounds? What's your exploration side?
Yes.
What do you like?
Yes, I mean the beautiful part about touring with so many different artists that throughout my career, I get a chance to, whenever I go anywhere, I always try to find the music, the local music for wherever I am. And Brazil, oh my God. Brazil, when I was in Brazil, I had the honor of going there with Esperanza Spalding and also an artist named Ayo. And every time I would go to Brazil, I would just sit and almost like, how people go to the beach and to absorb the sun, I would be absorbing the music and the culture. And just being there and listening to the sound, listening to all the percussive instruments, listening to the harmonies. I love Brazilian music. And I just love music in general, but I always want to make music that has a worldwide reach, and so I love Brazilian music. Oh my God. Yeah. And I do collect records, but I like to meet musicians and get a first, and feel the music, firsthand. I remember when I went to Cuba, I would go to these little rehearsals at little high schools and just see these incredible musicians playing music. It's just something about being in the room with musicians. And I love listening to records, but also love having a conversation with people about music and understanding like how they're thinking about music. In India, they have a whole different way of notating music. It just really messed up my head when I was there. It's so different,
Now, do you think the notation can actually have an effect on how it's processed by the artist? Like, could it actually yield a different result because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really it's almost like when you look at the hieroglyphics in Egypt, the symbols mean certain things, and the way it's almost like with any piece of music, you interpret something, according to your human DNA, so I love that music. My God.
Well, the one of the crazy things about like Indian raga music is just the structures that they come up with, right? Like you have like a 12-bar blues or 32-bar whatever here. They're just basic structure is insane, right? Like just the length of it.
Insane. Yeah.
Everyone's excited for Ray Angry 3 and Plumb. It's pretty fantastic to hear that Ray Angry 2 is going to be a trio, and Ray Angry 4 in the future is going to be a symphony, or maybe not a symphony, but who knows, maybe. Actually, I did want to ask you. Well, you know, I know from watching you, like you live stream on your Instagram. We'll link all Ray's social media for everyone to follow. But you'll like do your basic, like, I don't know if it's just practicing or you'll live stream and you'll do like Chopin and all these classical pieces that you're working on. And I've also heard you speak about your love of classical music and that you want to compose symphonies, and you have composed a symphony, the Black Athena Power.
Yeah.
And can you talk about that just a little bit? Like, do you have, I know that, like, you know, as opportunities come up and new things come up, but is that a trajectory that you'd like to take your music? Would you like to, you know, do more symphonic work and classical work?
Yes. And it's, you know, I have an incredible manager named Elizabeth Healy. And Elizabeth Healy is really, she's become a superhero in my life because, you know, during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to compose music for my first commission, which was for the Lexington Symphony Orchestra. And the conductor, Jonathan McPhee, was so kind and so gracious in being open to me composing the symphony. And I literally started to study with composition with a gentleman named Raimundo Piñaforte, and he, he started Juilliard and basically broke down every nook and cranny of the orchestra, and helped me to understand the inner workings of the orchestra. And I'm still learning and growing. You know, I'm studying right now with a gentleman named Roger Dickerson in New Orleans, who is, a legend, a living legend. And he taught Wynton Marsalis, he taught Branford Marsalis, he taught Terrence Blanchard when Terrence Blanchard got with Spike Lee and was working on Malcolm X soundtrack. I believe he was working with Roger Dickerson during the time. I mean, he's just an amazing teacher. I say that to say, yes, right now, I mentioned my manager because right now I have at least 5 commissions on the table with various orchestras around the country. And right now I'm working on my next symphony, which is my version of the story about Cain and Abel, you know.
Okay.
And I'm really creating my own sort of allegory about this tale.
Okay.
And really creating my own version of it, you know. And it's really exciting. And yes, I love writing for orchestras. I love writing for big ensembles, and I want to definitely do more of that in cooperation with film scoring, because I love there's something that film music speaks to me in a way, because I love so many different styles of music. And in the film world, you can easily record any style of music you want, because every film is going to be different, you know. Whereas you're making a record, you sort of have to tailor it towards a particular genre because you want to sell it. Whereas in the film world, I can do a classical record, I could do an electronic, record, and so I just love the sound of the orchestra, and I definitely want to do more in that world,
That's amazing. We're now over an hour, and so I just wanted to kind of jump in. Thank you guys for joining us. This was a thrill for Felipe, Chris, and I, and we are looking forward to what JMI is putting out and what they're putting out in the future. Steve, do you have anything you wanted to add here? Is there any other projects you wanted to discuss?
Well, just some exciting stuff that's going to be coming out on JMI that we have in the pipeline right now. We have a record from Max Girl and Mike Mitchell, a drums and bass album that's coming out. That it's really exciting. To two platter, 45 RPM type thing. And we did an album with the aforementioned Myron Walden. That's going to a flute album with a string quintet from Myron, which we're working on as well. And we recently recorded Max Girl. You know Max Girl, the bass player. He did a solo record for us previously.
Yeah.
And which was produced by Stanley Clark. That one's coming out, and he recently did a record with his trio that we're going to be releasing, later this year. So, really cool stuff coming out in the future. And everybody, please go to our website, jmirecordings.com. You can see all the records we have available for sale and pre-order right on the homepage. So we've got JMI is up to about 25 records. So we're super excited, and Plumb is just kind of the cherry on top at this point, and we're really excited to and Ray's piano box, because they both represent things that we really, really wanted to do and heights that we really wanted to reach. So check us out, and thank you guys for having us. You guys are really influential people in this world, in the world, not on Earth, but in the world of what you do. You're the best.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. That's amazing. I want to say one thing, Ray, about Ray Angry 3 real quick. I was listening to it, today, and it reminds me of like the Keith Jarrett solo concert boxes. I mean, it's just beautiful, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Thank you. I mean, Keith Jarrett, man, I wish I saw him at Carnegie Hall and I got a chance to meet him. But man, that is one guy I wish I could sit down and have a conversation with about music. That guy is he's just one of my favorites, And I remember when I was doing a record with Smokey Robinson and Smokey Robinson and who was the guy from American Idol? He would always say, "Hey, dog." Yeah, it was man.
Ray is our Keith Jarrett, for JMI for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Keith Jarrett. My God. Yeah, thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. Just the variety of sound and the colors and textures that you produce, man. And actually, Stephen, the solo recordings y'all are putting out are just crazy, man. Like I've gone blank, but the drum one that y'all did.
Dynamite.
Mitchell. Mitchell.
Mike
Holy
Mitchell.
Crap, man!
Yeah.
Just
we've done a bunch of
recordings to me.
Thank you. We did James Carter solo record that's available. And Mike Mitchell on drums. We did a solo drums album. I mean, I hate hawking my wares or trying to like literally sell records. But like the Mike Mitchell album is just it's so sublime. It's just so surreal. Like it's a solo drum record, and it's like it's an incredible. To me, it's like a record that of all the JMI records, I'm just like, people need to hear this one for some reason. It's just so different, and I mean, all of our records obviously are my favorite, but like this Mike Mitchell album just keeps popping in my head. Like, wow, just such a cool project. So I encourage people to check that one out. It's I don't think it's streaming yet, but
the JMI catalog is shaping up to be an incredible collection. So
I agree.
It's top stuff.
Thank you.
But the Mike Mitchell, I mean, me too, man. That thing blew me away because I'm like, okay. When I first got it, I was like, a 2 LP drum solo record. This should be like, who the fuck thought this was a good idea, right? But then I listened to it, and it's a freaking record, man. It's not just like some guy playing drum solos. You know what I mean? It really did blow me away. So really love that one too.
Man, it's a privilege for us to be able to work with these incredible, who the legends are, and it's amazing. managed to work with quite a few of them.
No, it's incredible. I mean, just hearing the stories of like you guys bringing the Steinway up into the studio, like that just sounds like I would love to be there for that.
Well,
I
think
it was a joy going to the Steinway warehouse and picking out a piano. I mean, that whole process of being in there and seeing them like put pianos together from just blank pieces of wood.
Amazing.
It's just incredible. Oh man, yeah, I love that experience.
That's
All right,
awesome.
Felipe, any final words?
No, just thank you guys for joining, for giving some of your time, talking about your passion, about your work. And I think Chris has a great point. Even like Bill Evans solo records, I never listened more than once, but this Ray Angry Tree I listened to like many times, and doesn't bore me. So it's an amazing record.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah, man.
There's a story, you can feel it. Feels big. And
yeah, you
I
did it,
think
Ray.
I think it's gonna be a big hit. Yes, an amazing
Thank
record.
you.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone who's watching. Please drop a comment. We love to kind of hear what you think about this. Let us know what you think about Ray Angry's efforts here. JMI's catalog, what are your favorite ones? Definitely go check them out. We're going to link everything in the description so everybody can find it. And yeah, remember to like and subscribe, and please share this. It really helps the visibility of everybody. And yeah, just thanks again to Ray and Steve. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.